Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're going to be doing a Simorgh deck profile. So Simorgh is a really amazing deck that can summon out some really crazy blinged out birds to be able to go after your opponent for all sorts of damage, and can even shut down your opponent and lock them down to where they're only summoning wind monsters with the amazing Barrier Statue Storms, which is an amazing card that can be summoned out really easily in this deck with the Simorgh Bird of Sovereignty, which is one of the most powerful link monsters I think created in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh! With an amazing effect to be able to special summon a winged beast during every single end phase that has less of a level than all the spells and trap zones that are currently unoccupied on the field, which is an amazing effect. And a lot of you guys have actually been requesting the deck profile of Savannah's Simorgh deck from the live duels, which this is extremely close because this is actually my build and she has a build as well. But this is very, very close to her particular build. I think they're actually identical to being maybe like one card different, but we're currently like working on hers to build it up even better for more live duels. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below, so we have some awesome rewards, you guys, like getting your name in the description for every single video, getting a signed card sent in the mail, or even getting a requested deck profile every single month that you're a patron, along with test hands. So let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Simorgh Lord of the Storm. Simorgh Lord of the Storm is a really good card in this deck, but at the same time, you really just need 2. Like, if you play 3, it kind of starts to clog a little bit. You can play 3 in the deck, and it can help out a little bit with cards like Trade-In, but overall, it's just a good 2 of, because it has the ability that your opponent cannot target this Tribute Summon card with spell or traps or effects, and then you can also use the effect of this card that when a spell or trap card or effect is activated, then you can tribute a winged winged beast monster you control to target one card your opponent controls and shuffle it into the deck. And when a winged beast monster you control is destroyed by battle while this card is in your graveyard, you can add this card back to your hand, which is why it's not that big of a deal to be able to use it as a material for your trade-in, to be able to discard. We then play 3 copies of Simorgh of Darkness. Now, Simorgh of Darkness is definitely a 3 of. This card is ridiculously easy to get out because it has an amazing effect that while face up on the field, this card is also a wind attribute, and if you tribute summon a dark or a wind monster, then you can special summon this card from your graveyard if it was there, or your hand if it was not. And when a spell or trap or effect is activated, you can quick effect tribute a wind monster that's a winged beast and negate the activation if you destroy it, which is pretty good as well. We then play a single copy of Dark Simorgh, which makes it so your opponent cannot set any cards on their side of the field, which is an insanely good effect to be able to just stop your opponent from setting any cards on their side of the field. And I love this effect to be able to just stop those cards. It just is overall a really cool card to make it so they can't, like, they have to either activate it or they have to like normal summon it. It's like really, really, really good. We then play 3 copies of Danger Thunderbird. Danger Thunderbird is a really good card, being a rank or level 8 play, or being able to special summon it to your side of the field. Now, it has the really neat ability that all Dangers have, that you can reveal it in your hand. Your opponent randomly chooses a card from your hand and discards it. And if this card is chosen, then you get to pop a card on your opponent's side of the field that's a set card. And if you don't, then you special summon this card to your side of the field and you draw a card as well, which is helpful to be able to help you dig through the deck. And you can always use it as a material for your trade-in. We then, going into the Simorgh, like baby Simorgh monsters, or the monster that you're always going to be summoning, you're going to be playing a single copy of Simorgh Bird of Protection. Simorgh Bird of Protection is like probably the worst one, but you want it as a one of just so you can have as many Simorgh monsters as possible in the main deck. It's just really good because all your Simorgh low-level monsters share the ability that if they're in the graveyard and you don't have any spells or traps, your opponent doesn't have any spells and traps on your side of the field, then you can special summon them back from the graveyard. But it has a really cool effect that helps you deal with kind of one-of cards that your opponent has, that when this card is normal summoned, you get to target one card to your opponent's spell and trap card zone and return it to the hand, which can help you like bait out a copy of Impermanence. It can help you bait out a copy of a card that you just don't want to deal with. And it's overall just a really good card, but it kind of conflicts a little bit with your copy of Dark Simorgh, but I like it as a one of in the deck because it can revive itself. We then play 3 copies of Simorgh Bird of Calamities. Simorgh Bird of Calamities, when it's normal summon, you get to send a Simorgh from your deck to the graveyard, which is helpful to be able to foolish burial a particular Simorgh that you particularly need in the graveyard so you can revive it back, to be able to use it as a link material as well. We then play 3 copies of Simorgh, Bird of Bringing. Simorgh, Bird of Bringing is ridiculously good. When this card is normal summon, you get to add a Simorgh card from your deck to your hand, which is really good to help you out in this deck to be able to add literally any Simorgh card that you want. And then we play 3 copies of Simorgh, Bird of Beginning. Simorgh, Bird of Beginning gives you an additional normal summon, which is really good in this deck, because when this card is normal summoned, you can activate the effect. During your main phase, you can normal summon 1 Simorgh card in addition to your normal summoner set, and like I said before, all of your Simorgh cards share the ability that if your opponent controls no spells or traps, then you can just immediately special summon them back from the graveyard onto your side of the field, but when they leave the field, they're banished. We then play a single copy of the Barrier Statue of Stormwinds. Barrier Statue of Stormwinds is a good card because it makes it so neither player can special summon anything but wind monsters. So it's ridiculously good at helping out stopping your opponent and locking them down. To be able to special summon it off your copy of the Bird of Sovereignty, this card is ridiculously good. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we are going to be playing a single copy of Terraforming. Terraforming helps us get into Elboars, the Boars, or the Simorgh field spell, the Sacred Lands. This card is really good to be able to get to that because that is a really pivotal card that you're going to need as quickly as possible. We then play a single copy of Harpy's Feather Duster. Somewhere Savannah's going nuts. This card's really good because it just hits all the back row that your opponent has. And it's an overall really good card to stop your opponent's back row if they're playing any, to be able to go in with your plays with your Simorgh cards, because being able to like deal with your opponent's back row is extremely important in this deck, and is why we play a bunch of cards in this deck to deal with that. We then play 3 copies of Trade-In. Trade-In is really good in this deck too, because Trade-In just helps out being able to discard your level 8 monsters to be able to draw 2 from the deck, which is extremely important to be able to draw additional cards in this deck to get you more plays. And some of your Simorgh cards, like the majority, well, actually all of your Simorgh cards that are like the Simorgh of Darkness and the main Simorgh Lord of the Storm, they don't care if they're in the graveyard. The Lord of the Storm, he brings himself back, and then the Simorgh of Darkness doesn't care if it's in your hand or your graveyard. It can be anywhere and be special summoned. We then play a single copy of Simorgh Repulsion. This card is really cool too because it lets you discard a card, a winged beast monster from your hand, and then you return all cards your opponent's spell and trap card zone to the hand, which is really good to be able to just giant Trunade your opponent's side of the field. It's really good because then you can special summon your Simorghs back from the graveyard. And it also has the ability to banish this card from your graveyard to reveal a winged beast in your hand, and if you do, you reduce that monster's level in your hand of that name of that monster by 1 for the rest of the turn, which is pretty good to be able to do that, to be able to just reduce the level. We then play 3 copies of Simorgh Onslaught. Simorgh Onslaught is a ridiculous, in any other deck, I promise you, in any other deck, this card would probably be banned, because this card is so good at searching cards. You just discard a winged beast from your hand, and then you get to add 2 Simorgh monsters with different names or different attributes from your deck to your hand. It also shares the ability that you can banish this card and then reveal a winged beast, and then that monster's level is reduced. Reduce the level of that monster in your hand with that name by 1 for the rest of the turn, which is really good to be able to just reduce one of your level 8s to level 7, and then if you have 2 of these cards, you can just banish 2 of them and be able to reduce it down to 6 to be able to normal summon it 1 time with just 1 tribute, which is pretty good. And also, being able to search a copy of Simorgh of Darkness or a Dark Simorgh plus any of your other Simorgh monsters is really good, especially Bird of Bringing or Bird of Beginning. We then play 3 of the field spell, which is Elboars, the Sacred Land of Simorgh. This card is really good because it lets you have all of your Simorgh monsters gain 300 attack. You reveal level 5 or higher winged beast monster in your hand, and you can normal summon that card with 1 less tribute. So if you're going to tribute for 2, you can now tribute for 1. If you're going to tribute for 1, you can tribute for 0. Really good. And if you control a winged beast monster, you can have Scar Resolves, normal summon 1 additional monster. So by activating this card, normal summoning any Simorgh monster, you're going to get an additional normal summon, which can get you one of your big birds on your side of the field extremely fast. We then play 3 copies of the Monarch Stormforth. Now, I'm actually debating dropping this card because I'm kind of leaning towards making this deck a really going first deck. I'm thinking about dropping the copies of the Stormforth and playing 3 copies of Anti-Spell Fragrance, which is the difference, like, that's a big difference in mine and Savannah's deck. She actually plays Anti-Spell Fragrance, and I don't. And so I'm thinking about dropping the Stormforth to be able to play the 3 copies of Anti-Spell Fragrance. So definitely, if you guys want to drop the Stormforth, drop it. play your copies of your play your 3 copies of your anti-spell fragrance. That's totally up to you, but I'm totally thinking about doing that. In playtesting, I've noticed that this deck goes better going first, and so I'm really thinking about dropping these to play the 3 copies of anti-spell fragrance. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, I'm going to be playing a surprising trap in this deck that you guys are probably going to think, wow, why are you playing that? And then I'm going to explain it to you, and you're going to be like, oh, that's why. So we're going to be playing 2 copies of Simorgh Sky Battle. Okay, so you're probably looking at this card and going, who plays that? Okay, so I'm going to tell you why. What this card does, listen to the card effect extremely closely. Winged Beast monsters you control cannot be targeted by your opponent's card effects or their monsters' attacks except your Winged Beast monsters with the highest attack. Okay, what does that mean? Why is that important? Well, if you summon out your copy of your Simorgh Bird of Sovereignty, and then you summon out from your deck a copy of the Wind Barrier statue, now guess what? This card makes it so your Wind Barrier statue cannot be targeted for attacks, which is usually how they're handling the copy of the Storm Winds, okay? So, what are you seeing here? They're going to have to summon a monster that has more than 2400 attack that's normal summoned. It can't be special summoned. Or a wind monster that's higher than that, which is not going to happen. Usually, they're going to always summon out a monster, and also this card cannot, your opponent cannot target this card or a winged beast monster you control that this card points to with a card effect. So this already cannot be targeted, so they have to beat over this card or hit it with a blanket effect, which is why it's so important to play Sky Battle. I thought Sky Battle was terrible until I realized that combo with the Link monster. It's really, really good, actually. And it's a good 2-up. And also it has the ability that if you control 2 Simorgh monsters that you control with 2 different attributes who's on your side of the field, you can return those cards on your field to your hand, and if you do, take 500 damage for each card returned to your hand, and then inflict damage to your opponent equal to that damage, which is pretty cool. But the original levels have to be 7 or higher, and then you return cards on the field up to the number, or return as many cards on the field as possible to the hand, so you can board wipe your opponent if they've made a crazy board. So this card's really good, actually. We then play 3 copies of Harpy's Feather Storm, which can just basically make it so your opponent can activate any effects that are monsters on your side of the field or on their side of the field for the rest of the turn, which is pretty good as well, to just be able to stop all monsters' activated effects on the field. So, that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing 2 copies of the Simorgh Bird of Sovereignty. I don't think I really need to go over the effect of this card because you guys have kind of heard it like 3 or 4 times now. But in short, for every zone that's not used, that's a spell and trap card zone, you can special summon a monster from your deck that has a level less than or equal to the amount of unused spell and trap card zones on the field during each end phase, during your end phase and during your opponent's end phase. So if they don't deal with this card on their turn, you're going to summon a big bird on their turn, and they're not going to have a good time on the next turn. We then play a single copy of the Doom Eagle. Doom Eagle is a 1-of in the deck. It gains 2400 attack and goes up to 48 if your opponent doesn't have a monster in their graveyard, and you can once per turn target a monster in your opponent's graveyard and shuffle it back into the deck. So if you're going first, this card's really good to be able to just deal with cards, and it is a quick effect to target a monster in your opponent's graveyard and shuffle it back in the deck. We play a single copy of Access Code Talker. You don't go into it all that often. If you're trying to build this on a budget, you can drop Access Code Talker, play Borreload, Borrelsword, Appaloosa, whatever you want to play. It's totally fine. I just love Access Code Talker, but you don't have to play this card in the deck at all, because you're usually just going to end on the copy of the Simorgh Bird of Sovereignty. 1 copy of Nightmare Unicorn. Nightmare Unicorn spins stuff, which is really good. Phoenix to pop spells and traps if you need to. Cerberus to pop monsters. Great Fly because it boosts up your monsters by an additional 500, which is pretty helpful. High Speed Roy Chambara. Chambara is really good because it gives you an additional normal summon, or not Chambara, but Rubber Band. Rubber Band's really good because it gives you an additional normal summon, which is pretty good, which is just super helpful to help you go into your copy of your Simorgh Link monster, because it requires 2 monsters, including a Wing Beast monster. So as long as it has a Wing Beast monster included in there, it can be Link summoned using your high speed Rubber Band, which is pretty cool. And then a single copy of Link Rebo. Link Rebo is super helpful because you can use your 1-of or your level 1 copy of the Simorgh monster to summon this to be able to stop attacks. Dingirsu, because it can send cards from deck, or send cards on the field to the graveyard. You rarely summon the rank 8s in the deck, but they're here if you need them. 1 copy of number 97, because you can summon number 97 and then summon a 9,000 attack point number 100, or a number 92, or a 38. It depends on what you need. Number 100 just comes out as a 9k beat stick on your side of the field by detaching a material. We're using the copy of number 97's effect. A single copy of number 92, Hard Earth Dragon. Hard Earth Dragon's good in the deck too, because your opponent can't destroy it by battle, and if it's sent to the graveyard, then you get to revive it as well, which is really cool as long as it has an XZ material. And then when it's summoned back, it gains 1,000 for each banished card, and you can detach a material from this card, and it has the ability that it banishes every normal, special summoned, or set card that your opponent has on the field that was put on the field this turn. We then play a single copy of number 38. 38, it just negates spells and traps, which is really good. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. It's a really insanely fun deck. I highly recommend that if you guys have not picked up a Simorgh build, you definitely should. It's probably one of the more budget decks that you can pick up on the channel. Sitting at probably about $10 for the core of the deck. You can pick up every single card in the entire main deck that is a Simorgh card for $5 or $10. I'm not even kidding. This deck was entirely it was in a set that nobody really wanted. Rising Rampage was not the most optimal set that was released, and then nobody really got a hold of it, and the cards that they did get was Simorgh, and nobody built it. And then it was really good. It was a really good deck until the Link Monster came out, and then everything was kind of supers or commons or rares, and so it was really easy to get, and so it's a really cheap deck. So without further ado, guys, I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell next so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely tell me what you think of this deck down in the comments down below, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.